Holy mistaken identity, Batman! Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And welcome to a special Father's Day edition of Main Street Cinema, the show where we discuss the finer points of filmmaking. All right, Dragon. So this is a rather unconventional Father's Day pick, but I think a very good one. So obviously on the channel, we have a little bit of a fondness for the Bat, don't we, Dragon?
You could say that, yeah.
So, of course, we go through the animated Batcave, Gotham. Let's see. We've done various different Batman things. We're Bat fans.
Few pitches here and there.
Few pitches here and there. Yes. Dragon, this is a documentary that has been in the works, I believe, for quite some time. I know Adventure Blue Dude has been following the development of this thing as well. But essentially, the Father's Day angle that we're going with here is, of course, one of the most beloved pop culture icons of all time, right up there with the likes of Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, I would argue, is Batman.
Oh, yeah.
But who created Batman? Of course, Bob Kane is the Stan Lee of DC in a way. He's at least the the figurehead, the guy who got in the limelight and the spotlight. But this documentary takes a look at, kind of questions. It's sort of funny, Dragon, because it's sort of the whole, the actual father versus the stepfather, but all in the ways of creative IPs and creator-driven content and whatnot. Something that is very relevant in today's society. But, as I said, it's basically just the beloved character and who has the rights and who is the true father of the Bat. I'm sorry, Dragon. I'm sure you can pitch this better than I can.
Yeah, let me take a stab at it here. So, folks, just kind of give you the quick abbreviated version of the Bill Finger history lesson here. So, for over 75 years, the world believed Bob Kane created Batman. That wasn't true. There was an unknown co-creator who did a large share of the creative legwork. That man was Bill Finger. You see, Bob Kane hired him off the books as a ghostwriter under his employees. There was never like a contract written up for DC that included Bob that had Bill Finger officially employed on Batman. It was always like just kind of worked with him on the side because they had worked together previously and other stuff. Really, I'll just say, as you'll see in the movie, it's a handshake deal, which never goes well. If we've learned anything from the founder, handshake deals never go well. So Bill Finger. Basically, this deal, this off the books, like paying under the table deal as a ghostwriter, led to Bill Finger going unknown, except to those within the comics industry. Like only really people who were there since the beginning, the old school comic writers, and like those kind of who were kind of like ushered in from who learned study at the pros' feet, really knew about Bill Finger. Except for one lad, children's author Mark Tyler Nobleman began a tireless journey that required detective work that would make the Batman proud. To do the impossible, folks. I mean, legitimately, to do the impossible, he got Bill Finger. At the end of the day, he got Bill Finger the credit he deserved. And after a number of speaking engagements, a really good book. Podcast here and there, of course, Fat Man on Batman being the most remarkable of the podcast, and of course, this film. In the end, this film was made to detail his remarkable journey to acknowledge Batman's true father. I mean, this film, in many ways, folks, is a story of fathers and legacies, which, hence the reason we're talking about it here today.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's very much in the same spirit of I Am Your Father.
Very much so, yes.
Where it's like, a forgotten figure, a forgotten touchstone of a pop culture legacy is getting his credit and it's getting its time to shine.
And very much overshadowed, just not as like, everyone loves James Earl Jones, no one could ever see James Earl Jones as possibly a bad guy. Well, right. As ironic as that sounds.
Well, he's Mufasa, man. Come on.
That's what I'm saying. So, of course, he's identified as a bad guy, technically.
All right. So, I know. I think Batman and Bill and then I Am Your Father would make a good documentary double feature.
Very true. So, Tiki, let me ask you this.
Yo.
I'll fire into how I got to know Bill, how I came to learn about Bill Finger. How did you come to learn about Bob Kane?
Well, first of all, just let me just establish that how I came to learn about Bill Finger is, I was just one of those nerdy kids who read books, Dragon. I read a lot of books, and I read DC history books and whatnot, and I also, perused around like websites like Ain't It Cool News and stuff like that. So I was kind of like in that sort of geek culture who roughly knew who Bill Finger was, right? What I didn't know was the extent to which Bill Finger was screwed over. Because I knew that he was kind of the more obscure name, kind of the Iwerks to Bob Kane, essentially being the Walt Disney of Batman. And I think that's a good comparison, although I think with Walt Disney and Iwerks, there was a lot more respect there, whereas Bob Kane, Dragon, as I alluded to, in my opening statements here, he really is, for all intents and purposes, in his heyday, especially around the Batman '89 era, he was the Stan Lee for DC Comics. He was the public figure, you know what I mean? He was the guy, and of course, that's where I remember him is the documentaries and stuff like that, like all the comic book documentaries and all the the DVD bonus material and all that good stuff. Bob Kane would always be showing up, telling his story, and so that's where I really got to know the guy as the public figurehead. And as I said, over my experience, I always knew Bill Finger's name because, I was kind of like one of those nerdy comic kids who, like I knew the name of all the Disney animators, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't think there was any sort of difference between that and between knowing who Bill Finger was, right? Like, not many people are going to know the difference between Frank Thomas and Wooly Reitherman, for example, you know what I mean? But anyways, so what I'm trying to get at here is, as I said, like Bill Finger was the name, I knew the name very well, but the documentary just does such a good job of exploring the depths of depravity that the villain of our piece, Mr. Bob Kane, is going to get into here, man. I mean, this, I don't want to call it a character assassination, Dragon, because I think that.
Here's the thing: I don't think we should victimize, wrong term, villainize. I don't think we should villainize Bob Kane too much.
Well, at the same time, I think this documentary definitely pairs him as the antagonist of the piece, at the very least.
Yes.
All right. Maybe you have a different perspective on it.
Right. Well, here's how I came to know Bill Finger. So.
Okay, go ahead.
So you see, for the longest time, again, like many Bat fans, of course, again, we just kind of blindly assumed, okay, well, the guy who's credited for. The guy's credit on the Batman comics, who has a very distinct signature. Again, Bob Kane with a big O in a little box.
right.
Bob Kane, or just Bob Kane just didn't get credits during the movies. Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Batman created by Bob Kane. I have no reason to disbelieve this for many years. So, I got to, of course, knowing Bob Kane, just again, Bob Kane bleeds in the Bill Finger, of course, as always. So I got to start off a little bit like that. So. Like Tiki, again, I think we just kind of collectively knew Bob Kane from like all the bonus features on the the Burton Schumacher Batman DVD sets, because that was when he was alive for all. Yes, he was alive for all of those movies, and he did all the behind the scenes, kind of giving some thoughts on things. And his wife actually cameoed in all the movies. Well, not in the Schumacher films. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so. A few years later, in 2008, I want to say, that's when Gotham Knight is released. This animated Batman film called Gotham Knight, which essentially it's kind of the Animatrix, but with Batman for building the Dark Knight. It's kind of what they.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
So that's released, and they put that on DVD again. It's kind of like it's a tie-in between Batman Begins and Dark Knight, which I'm not going to turn in a whole discussion about. The point is, this is back when DC had really interesting features on their DVDs, mm-hmm. And when they did this, they had the little bonus features, featurette. I can't call it a full-fledged documentary because I think at most it goes 40 minutes. I'm not entirely sure, but it's like an extended featurette, like a mini documentary of...
kind of in the same vein of something that Disney would put out, like shy of an hour.
Kind of, yes.
Right,
and essentially this adapted the biography of Bob Kane called Batman and Me. The little documentary feature was called Batman and Me.
Okay.
Which you can tell where they got the title for this film from.
right.
So the point is, Batman and Me, this little featurette that was really kind of I get to learn more about Bob Kane, because Bob Kane just being the guy who kind of talks about Batman. Okay, here's the guy who created him, and you get to know a guy real personally, a real good personal look at him in this. in this featurette. And this is the first time, the reason I bring this up, I'm not just bringing up Bob Kane entirely, I'm bringing it up because Bill Finger has a quick mention in this. Now, for again, I never really kind of thought of anyone else in the creative process of Batman. I just heard like Bill Finger was mentioned very briefly. It wasn't mentioned that he co-created Batman or things like. Briefly, it may have been mentioned that Bill Finger contributed some ideas that led Bob Kane to make these changes.
Sure, right.
It was framed. So basically, I can't remember, like, there's a very small mention of Bill Finger, so I knew the name Bill Finger from that. So I had basically 3 Bigfoot sightings of Bill Finger, essentially. So that was the first one. Then there was a Comic-Con I went to, early Comic-Con I went to, one of the first or second one I went to, and basically it was the Q&A segment. They're asking the head of DC, Dan DiDio, or at least one of the chief editors at that time, Dan DiDio, like a bunch of questions, and I was there and just going to take in some of the other questions, and one guy asked, when's Bill Finger getting credit on all the Batman books? Mm-hmm. And I was like thinking to myself, Bill Finger again? I've heard that name in a while.
right.
And honestly, again, so I assumed Bill Finger was like, oh, he worked on Batman. I just didn't know, like, to the extent. I didn't know he co-created them. So then I find all this out 2014 with the Fat Man on Batman, the podcast that came out. That was when the Tyler Nobleman, one of the subjects of this film here, he was on Fat Man on Batman. He basically blew my mind. Oh my God, Bill Finger did all of this for Batman? Oh my God. And notably on that podcast, it was released in 2014, of course, was the 75th anniversary of Batman, but also, it covers in the documentary briefly, earmarks the 25th anniversary of 89, and of course, the 100th, Bill Finger turning 100 years old.
Oh, that was a crazy bit of symmetry there for the universe.
Yes, like all of those events kind of coalescing, and basically what this is like a fun little crossover is that Nobleman, he was basically saying he was trying to get Bill Finger a Google Doodle. When you click Google on like certain days when people were born, or like when it's your birthday, it'll pop up.
Yes, right.
He was trying to get one of those for Bill Finger to get the word out, so hopefully they give him credit based on that, because he didn't get on Rises, for reasons you'll see in the movie, and following that, it was just it was like an attempt to kind of get Bill Finger's name out there, kind of explain to everyone. Again, the podcast was kind of a big step in getting there. He had done a book at that time, which after I heard this podcast, I picked up that book, and it was a really great book, Bill the Boy Wonder. And it was so that kind of inspired me, because it was like a last minute thing, basically within like a week or two to get the word out. Like basically, you get the word out to send letters to Google, like an email to Google or something, saying like, hey. Give Bill Finger Google Doodle. So I did a video about Bill Finger's on the fly. Did a quick video as quick as I could to like kind of meet the deadline. It's like, hey guys, send emails to trying to help Bill Finger out. Basically, like an hour of talking about Bill Finger, all the stuff that was revealed in that book and in that Fat Man on Batman, and just kind of like was chatting it over and just kind of explaining this, and then kind of putting the PSA out there. One, guys, help Bill Finger out. I mean, let's get justice for the man that created the Bat.
Right.
And then in Fat Man on Batman, there was a mention of like a film in development, like a biopic or a documentary, and here we go. That's ever since he said that, I've been expecting.
Call John Lee Hancock. Call John Lee Hancock.
I'm all for that one.
Anyways,
so that's kind of so I've been expecting this thing based on Fat Man on Batman, and just the minute it was announced, like, hey, it's going to be on Hulu as a documentary, it's like I lost my mind. Like I'm definitely using like a trial, like a free trial thing on Hulu to see that.
Right, and of course, folks, we do encourage you to watch it on Hulu, because that's where the creator is going to get the the actual financial revenue for putting this thing out to everyone. So
again, folks, the free trial is the gateway. It's the gateway.
Exactly. So, right. You got nothing.
So now, based on the fact that it is very exclusive to Hulu, so I mean, again, we encourage all of you to watch it, but through Hulu. But just in case, we're going to try to keep this conversation for our commentary. We're trying to keep the commentary conversational. So ideally, you can watch it just as a podcast along with the movie. Even if you're not watching the movie, you could still kind of take some points away from it.
Yeah, sure. We're going to be talking about the narrative structure of the documentary, but we're also going to be talking about the history of, what the documentary is laying out. Hopefully, we'll do a good job of that.
Yeah, kind of like talking points. If we're lucky, it'll go like talking points, but we'll see.
All right. So, Dragon, I guess, folks, if you want to, as Dragon said, we'll try and keep this as conversational as we can. But if you want to sync up with us and, see all the cool, comic book artwork and whatnot that this film has in store for us, go ahead and get your copy of Batman and Bill, preferably on Hulu, and sync it up to timestamp 00. I will count up to 3 and then say go. When I say go, go ahead and press play.
We go on go.
We go on go. Yes, yes. All right. Ready, Dragon?
Yeah.
All right. In 1, 2, 3, go. All right.
So you'll notice the first image we're about to start off with is a projector with the bat symbol on it. I just love opening the movie like that.
Yeah, and the bat signal is just, and this is a great kind of introduction to this sort of class assembly, you know, and the universal the universal recognition of Batman. You know what I mean? As I said, it's like it's in the same vein as something like the Mickey Mouse ears, where even if you don't see the character, just the silhouette, just that symbol, you know, radiates in the culture, and it's one of the most iconic pieces of pop art ever.
Absolutely. I mean, 89 was sold on that image without even just saying Batman.
I love that. That's one of the most cocky posters ever, man. I still
you know what this is.
That.
You knew what this is.
Right.
So this is so Nobleman's been known again. He's been known for going around because again he wrote a kid's book about Bill Finger as the co-creator of Batman, and this has been given an excuse to kind of go around to many schools and kind of give assemblies about Bill Finger for like an hour, and this is awesome to me. Just him like kind of selling not only the kids but the staff on like if you're not a comics fan, you're going to leave a comics fan after this show.
I love how he specifically points out the staff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really awesome. Of course, there's that awesome sweater Bob Kane was wearing, by the way, and all those photos like him with a Batman sweater. So you gotta say that for me. Bob Kane had style.
He did, and he had charisma as well.
True.
A lot of charisma.
Definitely get to that soon. One of my favorite elements of Bob Kane kind of starts off the movie. So this is a really cool opening. What we have here, essentially, we build right at the beginning. What Nobleman said about Fingers that. I just love that for the general audience, anyone watching this movie, anyone who didn't expect like something about some of these facts about Bill Finger going in, just like they're gonna have their minds blown like these kids when they learn, hey, Bob Kane, the guy you think created Batman, didn't, and then the movie starts. See with this opening, it's like great, like there's your mystery hook. I love this movie unfolds like a mystery, like a great detective novel almost.
This movie absolutely is a detective story. Yeah, that's one of the best elements of it. It absolutely unfolds like that. And Dragon, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Like, we shouldn't look at Bob Kane purely as a villain or an antagonist. But what I was trying to get at that was this movie very much does try and stick to the comic book conventions, and we even see the comic artwork. And, you know, in that way, we do have the hero and villain. So that's all I was trying to get at with Bob Kane. I'm not trying to say that Bob Kane's like some nasty, evil guy in real life or anything. You know what I mean?
Certainly, but again, to each his own. It is debatable. That's kind of the mystery of Bob Kane in himself.
I think we better just let the mystery be, Dragon.
Sure, it's Cloud Town, Jake. But also, I love the intro with the kids, and basically what Nolan was hitting upon is something I found loved it. It was a great way to open the movie for me because him saying him saying the thing I always found true with Bill Finger, that Bill Finger in many ways is Batman. You see where Batman got a lot of his traits from, in a way that Bill Finger didn't do it for the credit or the praise, and then he disappeared. It's like Batman's kind of swooping in, saving the day, and disappearing without a thank you.
So I'm sure you and I can both relate to this comic store with the shelf upon shelf of Batman to the small section of Superman. Like, Dragon, I'm sure you've been in way more comic shops than I have, but I definitely know what that's like.
Yes. And you'll notice here, I love this a little subtle thing here. The books he's going through that don't have Bill Finger's name on the credit line, these are each like kind of an era of Batman. Batman the Animated Series, that's the book he starts with, then the 60s Batman, then Dark Knight Returns, and then the classic, which is going to start our story off. Now here, we got to talk about Stan Lee and Bob Kane, because we have a Stan Lee cameo, which in itself is awesome.
Stan Lee cameo!
And then secondly, as a kid, Tiki, this is one of the most charming ideas to me, that in real life, and this is true, that's why these two are featured here, they were friends in real life, Stan Lee and Bob Kane. The idea my two favorite superheroes creators were pals.
Right.
Batman, Spider-Man. I always like those two, and there was a kind of a correlation there in real life.
It's kind of like the cooler version of J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, and Stan Lee always goes into many stories about Bob Kane. He was always boastful about creating Batman. And now, what's so cool about this movie is is when we see the clips of Bob Kane, the way they're utilized in this film is that we now have a new slant all to like him boasting about Batman, saying, "Oh yes, I created Batman. I'm so proud of creating
And
Batman."
that's exactly the sort of charisma, like Bob Kane just always had this cocksure attitude about him.
Yeah.
Which was charismatic and magnetic, you know what I mean, in those documentaries, which, as you say, kind of the documentary does a great job of calling that out and, pointing out the moral ambiguity at the very least.
There are two things I want to hit upon with Bob Kane before we miss it. Here's that one. Bob Kane, in many ways, I've had two comparisons for Bob Kane. Bob Kane in the creation of Batman is more like the mother of the Batman. No, I know it sounds strange.
Bob Kane is sort of, I hear you.
Is Batman's mother in that he struck the deal, he put him on the page, and as we see here, and they show it here, he can draw Batman.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Via the sketch, we have absolute kind of like on film proof that Bob Kane did have a hand in making Batman. Also, the very simple comparison is that Bill Finger's Batman, Bob Kane, is Bruce Wayne. He's the facade. He's the well dressed kind of man, who's kind of taking
he's
all
a businessman. Yeah, right.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the very simple way of looking at it too.
Dragon, what do you think of my Walt Disney and Ub Iwerks comparison?
I think it's a solid comparison.
Uh-huh.
Of course, we're getting to know a little bit of Nobleman here, which is nice. Kind of like how we got.
Of course, this is just a throwback to that love fest we've been going on with Captain Underpants about the Scholastic Book Fairs.
Yep.
Oh dear.
And this is nice getting to know Mark here, because Mark is a very important character in the story. Because again,
Boys of Steel is one that I definitely remember having in my elementary school. By the way,
I'm dying to. I got to read that book at some point. I'm dying to. It's
I remember it having really good artwork.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, Tiki, you got to check out the Bill the Boy Wonder book, the version because again the artwork of this film is taken from that book. Ty Templeton, I believe, did the artwork for this as well as the book.
Okay, cool.
So it should be like a very similar art style.
Got it.
And here we're highlighting an element of Mark's personality, which is going to be very. It's kind of a neat tease for the movie that he's a guy who doesn't let go of things easily with the fluoride gag here, with the whole just as you guys very sticks to these facts that come out, the untold truths of fluoride. It's in everything now. I didn't ask you for fluoride.
Right.
Of course, this shot is great. I love how this shot we track in and we're kind of panning around. Mark, as he's just kind of he's a like very detective, like kind of like an old school noir kind of like push-in shot, like here's the detective in his office kind of at work almost.
Now, do we have any background for like when exactly they started shooting this and like when? Because I'm curious about that. Like when
that's the thing. I don't know how much is recreation. I know it'd probably be safe to say 2000. I know we definitely shot stuff from. That opening was shot in 2015. So I mean, it's filmed to various points. I'm not sure how long.
Gotcha.
Oh, here's my guy here. I got to talk about him, Michael Uslan. So I've actually met Michael Uslan. Tika, this is the closest. Okay. This is the closest I'm ever going to get to meeting a creator of Batman. This guy is the godfather of Batman. He's the reason.
All right.
He's the reason '89 was made. He's the reason that he basically brought. Batman to film in a darker way in '89, and everything afterwards. Like he's been involved in Batman the Animated Series, everything with Batman in media. This guy's involved with.
Cool.
And he told me the story he's telling us now. The whole how he met the actual creator of Batman.
Oh, really? Nice. Was that during the panel?
No. Like I walked up to his table and he signed he personalized the book for me, and he also signed some other stuff I had from him. And he wrote a book called "The Boy Who Loved Batman." It's a really good book.
Okay.
But it's a great pleasure meeting Michael Uslan. I can't get enough of this guy. He's involved in everything on Batman. Batman's godfather. If we're talking about Batman's father in this movie, this guy's he's kind of taken care of Batman ever since his creators passed away.
Yeah, that's one thing to kind of keep in the context of the conversation, Dragon. Like the different sort of fatherly roles that Batman has, you know what I mean, or the different people who have shaped Batman's identity over the years.
Absolutely. I mean,
I would say that Frank Miller is the drunken stepdad.
Nowadays, yes.
Nowadays, I mean, like he's the stepdad where at first when your mom first got together with him, he's like, oh, this guy's great, he's the fun dad, you know what I mean? But then as the years go on, you see he's just an alcoholic jackass. Anyways, oh god.
Yeah, but
Anyway, I'm sorry.
And one last thing with Useless Story,
Sure.
Useless is that in a way he's responsible for the adaptability of Batman, like why we see him in so many different forms. Because at least in the media context, like that's why we keep getting different versions, realized in film.
Like Lego Batman.
You know what? Yes, I mean he's involved in that. Yes.
Nice.
Again, I can't say like he's involved in every aspect. I'm saying he's he's a producer. He kind of helps bring it to screen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, this to me was big. We're going to kind of a big reveal of this later on, but I never heard Bill Finger before this documentary because this is the first time anyone's ever heard Bill Finger.
Dragon, you know what the one thing missing from this documentary is?
What?
To tell oh god, what is it? To Tell the Truth? Is that the name of the game?
Oh right, yes. These documentaries and biopics keep opening with that.
Like that would just fit right in, right? Like,
of course, the tragedy is Bill Finger never got to tell the truth.
Right.
But by the way, man, we kind of talked over with the wonderful Ty Templeton artwork. Just the reveal of Bill Finger is really nice. He gave like this nice little smirk, this happy little smile of a smirk when he kind of emerged from the shadows.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Just the art style on the whole is really, really nice. And again, it's the book come to life, which looks kind of neat. So Jerry Bales, in a way, Tiki. Jerry Bales, the guy who sent the very famous letter. Every story has a finger in it. He essentially is kind of Nobleman's predecessor for this investigation into Bill Finger. He's the one who first kind of noticed that. Wait a minute, Bill Finger actually helped out a lot with Batman.
I can see that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, Bill Finger was a known name at the time. We just didn't know the extent of his creation, right?
He was like the comics industry really knew Bill Finger. There was an award at a certain point, Tiki, in the comics organization. They based on them knowing about Bill Finger, they had an award called the Bill Finger Award, and that's basically given to a pair that's like one's notable, like one's passed away and one's not, and they're both kind of unknowns.
Gotcha. So that's a good transitioning point into this is one of my favorite scenes in the film, Dragon.
Now, of course, this is Batman's origin, not in the alleyway. No, this is the real life origin of Batman.
We don't have any pearls. No pearls.
No pearls, but no, seriously, Tiki, this is absolutely how the thing transpired. This was the original Bob Kane design. He had mine here, and you can see the Bat influence. See, Bob Kane loves Zorro, so he had the mold for Batman.
Oh, and this guy is absolutely like blonde Zorro. I know, Dragon. The one thing about this design, like honestly, I'm kind of digging the red in the alternate Batman design, the Bob Kane design. Like, I don't mind the red. It's the blonde hair that really gets me. I don't know what it is. It's just the blonde hair just really doesn't stick well with me for Batman. Go ahead.
Well, so again, like you have as they went through, Bob Kane, he's into Batman mainly for the financial thing of like, hey, there's big money in creating superheroes in the comics industry, so I'm going to create a superhero and have it to you by Monday, as he says to the publisher. And based on the fact, he loves Zorro, loves kind of the masked vigilante types, he comes up with a character with kind of a bat gimmick because Bob Kane, he loved the Da Vinci design of like the flying kind of bat wings, so that's where he got the idea for like these stiff bat wings from.
Gotcha.
Then Bill Finger is applying some great logic to it. Well, he's going to blend in at night. He's going to need a full mask, and kind of many visual elements that Bob Kane then drew. So it's very much still in Bob Kane's hand.
So the whole idea of Batman being a creature of the night, being a guy who struck fear to the hearts of criminals, that was all Bill Finger.
Yes. Basically, like making a guy who's like garbed as a bat, not just the guy who has like a bat gimmick.
Gotcha. Because essentially what Bob Kane wanted to do was, as you said, kind of like a westernized Zorro in a way. Yeah,
again, just it's Zorro with bat wings. That's essentially what he came up with.
Right.
Because he was a big Zorro fan. Like he was part of a Zorro fan club when he was a kid.
Now, importantly, Dragon, I think that is an interesting transition from Superman, right? Because even in the Bob Kane version of Batman, he didn't have any superpowers. So it was kind of like the big kind of pulp thing before Superman was stuff, the serial stuff like Zorro and Flash Gordon, like those sort of serials. And then Superman came along, and then Bob Kane kind of, his whole idea from the get-go was to sort of be an amalgamation.
Something different than Superman.
Right, something different than Superman that would take elements of both Superman and sort of those pulp serial characters.
Yeah. So something just to mention, it's kind of past a little bit. Just something just to kind of mention here is with the as the deal evolves here. So again, so after the concept is fleshed out, again, Kane just kind of having a broad concept, which then fleshes out into the Batman we know today.
Finger essentially did all the world building.
Yes, he absolutely did all the world building. But Kane went in there solo, and he went there so they kind of had a handshake deal because Kane went there saying, okay, here's my creation, because again he struck the deal with the publisher alone. So I always figured with Bob Kane that he made a deal with as a one man job, and then if he comes back and they're saying, oh yeah, it was me and my friend did this, and he might be a little distracted, like, oh man, that means we're gonna have to double the pay. We don't want to do that, so take your concept somewhere else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think there is always a question of how much of Kane's actions is survival versus greed.
I mean, yeah, I hear you. I definitely think, like I said, it's interesting that greed is sort of one of the things that kind of Bob Kane was in it for. Like, he almost sort of viewed the whole endeavor as a get rich quick scheme.
Essentially, yes. And of course, that handshake deal was kind of Kane's way. Like, well, I can't officially put him on the thing, but I'll pay him on the side. And of course, anything any handshake deal is never in writing, so always get in writing, kids.
The Founder is essentially like a horror movie about handshake deals.
Essentially, and this is more of a scary horror movie. And handshake deals. Hey, you have a handshake deal, then you create Batman.
Well, I don't know, Batman, McDonald's, tomato.
Well, technically, Batman wasn't the Founder. If you want to be real technical.
God, right.
So this is the man who worked on the Thomas Andre, if I'm saying that right. He's the one who worked on the autobiography for Bob Kane.
For Bob Kane, right? Okay.
Yes, and again, he's the reason I kind of found out about Bill Finger in the first place. So, yeah. And this is how they met. He's just kind of recounting how the two met. Again, Bob was in the kind of the funny comics before the superheroes, because again, Superman was really the first big superhero at National.
Right.
Which then turned into DC. And Bill Finger, again, all the comics creators back then, Tika, they all came from essentially the same place. The majority of them were Jewish, and they came from very low incomes, or they either came from low income Jewish neighborhoods, or they came from they were in tailoring, or they were in finance. They were from either the high end or the low end. They were always coming from he worked in business. And Bill Finger was in his family made shoes, and they were tailors. That's kind of how they met, because Bill Finger had an affinity for comics, and he and Bob Kane kind of struck from that. I guess talking it over, Bill Finger's like, hey, he has an ear for story, and Bob Kane just could definitely use that going in a more serious direction, as he did with Batman. I'd figure.
Yeah.
This guy's a good writer, Fred Van Lente. He's written a few Deadpool comics.
Has he? There's good old Todd.
And of course, I love our figures here. Todd McFarlane and Kevin Smith are great, kind of they're beacons of the industry in a way. Kevin Smith's very down to earth, and of course he's the guy who's going to tell you how it is, because he's got nothing to lose. And Todd McFarlane is the example of kind of the success of Bob Kane in a way, in that he knows how the industry works, and he used that to his advantage to form image.
Yeah, Kevin Smith and Bob and Todd McFarlane are definitely a good sort of, they're sort of the cheerleaders of the different teams in a way. You know what I mean?
Yes, and Arlen Schumer here essentially fills the role of kind of our Leonard Maltin, the Malt, if you will.
Oh God. Just the critic who's kind of indifferent. He's just impressed me.
Well, I'm sorry, I should say less critic. I'm thinking more historian, but yeah, you're sorry. Maltin may have been a bad example. He's the comics historian who was definitely a critic of Bob Kane, so I guess it's somewhat relevant. So there's an idea here that that the Kane really just got caught up in stardom, and there was a point in the '60s where he could have he got so caught up in stardom, he had kind of his heroic moment of change, one could say.
Yeah, and like I said, this documentary does a great job of employing a lot of those comic tropes into the narrative. So the moment of change is one of those big, with great power comes great responsibility type deals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and basically that letter goes circulating around. I just love how they laid that out. By the way, again, I think it's passing. as we move forward in a bit. But you see what I'm saying, though? Like, they introduce Bill Finger, then they go back to how they met and how the creation went down, then they come back to like Batman at the height of his popularity.
Sure.
But basically, what Bob Kane's response to that initial question that we took a deviation from. So again, structurally, you're right, T. Very, very good. Now, this is funny. You're saying, remember that video I told you I made?
Yeah.
I know these 2 images because these are the only 2 images of him I could find. Bear in mind, again, Tyler Nobleman, he's dedicated so many years and hours of and zillion hours of research. So that's why he could find all these other photos. Probably now available, but time
sure.
I used the profile like baseball cap image, just so you know.
Okay, nice.
So the only one he could find, but I also used images, a few images here and there from the Ty Templeton artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And here we go. This is Nobleman's reaction to the Bill Finger audio. And I love the initial statement that Bill Finger makes. I was a ghost.
This sort of gets into one of our reoccurring themes when we talk about documentaries, which is archaeology.
Yes.
This is definitely like the Holy Grail, you know what I mean? It's definitely like, oh my God, there he is, Yeah,
like, I mean, yeah, the Robert Porfirio tapes, I believe these are. And again, I was a ghost. I really was. That is a solid gold find. You're right, Tiggy.
I was a ghost. I really was. Like, tell me that wouldn't make a solid last line of a trailer for the inevitable John Lee Hancock movie.
Yes, that would be perfect. So actually, what these tapes also reveal, it kind of goes by blink and you miss it, but it's revealed that Bill Finger went to D.C. about the credit thing, and we don't know what happened. It's most likely they shot him down somehow, but then he did go to D.C. at some point.
Right.
Now, these guys are very important, Tiki. These Jerry Robinson and Carmine Infantino, they're big claims to fame. They're big Batman names because, as he mentions, Carmine Infantino. Unfortunately, both of these men have now departed us. Unfortunately, these dearly departed. These were basically dearly departed champions of Bill Finger. These guys knew Bill Finger's contributions because, again, they worked under. They really formed Batman, so of course they have an in with the original creators.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Jerry Robinson's responsible for the look of the Joker. And Carmine Infantino brought the 60s look to the comics.
So when you say the look of the Joker, do you mean like the modern look of the Joker, or like
basically
from the get-go?
I'm pretty sure Jerry Robinson he brought in the playing card, saying, "Hey, why don't we make Joker look like this playing card?" Which gave us kind of that elongated, kind of like the initial kind of
my card.
Yeah, essentially the way the Mark Hamill Joker looks, and just kind of like the playing cards from '89 stuff. It's like that face. Essentially, he came up with the face of the Joker.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, now here we go. Now I love this. 20 minutes in, we get this is the part that blows everyone's mind. It's like the most going through all the contributions that Bill Finger's had over the years, like all the heroes, all the villains from the 40s. Basically, all the 40s Batman characters were all Bill Finger's. The Batcave, the Batmobile.
Right.
The nickname, the Dark Knight, and of course, let's not forget the most important, the two single most important pages of all of comics, the Batman origin.
We wouldn't have those damn pearls if it wasn't for him.
Because if I'm right, I think Superman's origin is on one page, and Batman was the most important 2 pages of 2 pages in any comic ever.
Right.
And I love this. This is a reveal on the rewatch I really kind of fully appreciated. That much like writers I adore, like Scott Snyder or Nobleman in this case, they both they're compiling research for the artist. I mean, they're really again that's the mark of a really good writer who compiles research like the Dickens.
Definitely. Hey, Dragon, I have cast members in mind for our potential biopic.
Who you got?
Okay, for Bob Kane, I've got Kevin Spacey.
Oh.
And for Bill Finger, I have Clark Gregg.
Oh my God! I'm loving that casting. I'm sold. Oh my God, that sounds great to you.
Right.
Of course,
Clark Gregg and Kevin Spacey.
I love that casting.
Lex Luthor versus Coulson. Yeah.
I'm so in love with that cast, and I won't get off point, but I love that cast.
I thought you'd like that.
So with Kevin Smith here, you know what? Just assigning roles to our guys in this movie. You know, there's Michael Easton's the Godfather of Batman. In many ways, I would say, just with all the Batman on Batman, kind of the way Kevin Smith's kind of broadcast Batman these days, I would say in many ways Kevin Smith is the new ambassador of Batman.
The ambassador of Batman is definitely a proper title.
He's the guy spreading the word.
Right.
It's a cool title, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's worked with it, and he actually knows Batman. He knows a Batman.
Yes, he knows a Batman. Oh god.
And of course, now we're again. I love how we go chronologically in the story. So now we're in the '60s era. Of course, this is one of the. There are two giant. I'm sorry. In the grand scheme of Batman, there are three giant peaks of Batman. Three eras of Batmania: '60s, '89, and the Nolan films.
And Dark Knight specifically.
Yeah. Yes. And it was '60s Batmania. You know how. Again,
it was pop art, man. It was just it was pop culture. You know, it was transcendent.
Absolutely, and with '60s Batman, you get to see kind of the different trajectories they took, as it's being pointed out here. Which I love that they're addressing this. You know, at this time, Kane's at the top, and he's just rolling with it. Where I love how the difference is, Kane's just rolling with the success. He's really hands off. He's just rolling with it. He's just kind of like, hey, Batman, I'm selling some Batman merchandise almost. Where Finger, on the other hand, as we're going to find out, he got involved. He got in the trenches. He worked in the Clock King episode of the '60s show. I mean, he's more proactive than Bob Kane was.
But at the same time, Bob Kane was more in the spotlight, and he was more in the media and kind of writing it out that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of telling that one got a little bit more involved than the other one. I'm just kind of coasting with the success in the spotlight.
Sure, very much so.
Again, very much the Bruce Wayne Batman thing. Bruce Wayne's kind of hogging up the line while Batman's getting the job done thanklessly.
I mean, yeah, and both of them have their roles in the story, but one of them requires putting their life on the line.
Certainly, because again, we do need to get Batman out there, and this again kind of how Stan Lee gets the Marvel guys out there.
Sure.
Now, again, I like how Todd McFarlane, of all people, Todd McFarlane, bear in mind, is a guy who always puts himself in the openings to the Spawn animated show. So he's a guy who can and that was something that was kind of, I assume.
Todd McFarlane, yeah. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about the guy, but he knows how to brand himself. I'll say that much.
That said, it kind of gives you an interesting layer that, hey, maybe Todd McFarlane was a little hesitant to do that, where Bob Kane was easy to do that.
That's true.
And there might be a little level. These paintings here, I knew looking at these weren't Bob Kane's.
Right.
So that one really didn't surprise me, because they're designed like the Bob Kane Batman, which essentially is the Brave and the Bold Batman from the animated stuff I've shown you to you. Essentially, there's the boxy kind of with the Batman with the smile look.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, that's a very the Bob Kane did design a really good Batman. We gotta give him that. He designed a very memorable Batman.
I mean, yeah, he designed the one that stood the test of time and was
Absolutely. I'm saying everyone has their look on Batman. I'm saying it's kind of like the initial, the beginning.
Mm.
Now, also something I want to highlight here is you got to remember Bob Kane. He got the best deal of one of the best deals of any comics creator, because back in the day, Tiki, Siegel and Schuster, as we're going to get to, especially by the end of this thing, I don't want to get into everything with Siegel and Schuster, but they got screwed at it. The guys that essentially gave Bob Kane a job because, hey, create the next Superman, they got the rights taken away from them, and they got bubkiss in terms of royalties. Bob Kane gets a piece of Batman through everything Batman made until his death.
I'm smelling another documentary / John Lee Hancock biopic.
Oh yes. Believe me, there's so many ways to go on that other one, but even today, I mean, Bob Kane, even by today's standards, they made it really, really great, because a lot of creators like Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, they don't get anything for Harley Quinn.
Oh wow, really?
That's what I'm saying. It's you have to be really really specific with these creator royalty things. So Bob Kane made out like gangbusters with his deal, because he's going to get a piece of everything. '89, all the merchandise sold in '89, he got a piece of that.
So essentially, Bob Kane became the Stan Lee of DC just through the business element of the industry.
Yeah, you got to remember, Jack Nicholson also made out really well, because Jack Nicholson got.
Oh yes, he did. He made out like a.
That's essentially, he got a Jack Nicholson deal only for everything.
Oh wow.
Essentially, that's where it worked for Bob Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now here we have Charles Sinclair, one of my favorite characters. This is kind of the closest we get to talking to Bill Finger in a way.
Okay.
And this story is really sweet to me. How Bill
Just
Finger
look at
like,
that. Just look at that. Look at that guy and tell me you don't picture Clark Gregg.
I know. It's so much, I'm sold. You don't have to sell me anymore. I'm sold on it. I see it completely.
Okay.
But seriously, a really sweet moment passed. I just wanted to acknowledge. I thought it was so beautiful. I love their friendship between Charles and Bill here. Where just Bill's asking this very humble thing. This is just one time work on the clock King episode. This one time can I get top billing? And of course, Charles being a nice guy says yes. And just that reaction of seeing Batman not only in color but his name. The only time in Bill Finger's life he's ever going to see his name attached directly to Batman.
Sure.
That's a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice sort of, I like how as we're building up the origins of Bill Finger, we're going to get more into the treacherous territory as we get into Act 2. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But for now, we're kind of highlighting, like, even though Bill Finger is sort of, he is like, the limelight is very much on Bob Kane. He's getting his due here. He's having his moment.
Oh, yeah. Now, to be fair, Bill Finger was writing in comics too, but he just never got attached to Batman. He's never got his name on Batman. So I mean, there were some really deep cut comics that did have Bill Finger's name on it occasionally. Just again, no one ever knew the truth about Batman.
Okay.
So I believe we're soon entering the '70s era DC, where unfortunately the kind of our classic guys are being aged out of the business.
Yes. This is very much kind of the same thing was happening over at Disney as well. There's so many parallels you can draw between the story of DC and the story of Disney when you look at it from that perspective.
Oh yeah, and you got to remember too, this is in the '70s. You have the big creative team, and we got a glimpse of them real briefly. Young Denny O'Neil and young Neil Adams, who were they were the Titan team on Batman in the '70s, which they ushered him more towards the detective era of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have, and this is really sad. What's being revealed here is the idea that while Bob Kane's he's on stage being accepted in a crowded room, saying, "Oh, I created Batman," everyone's cheering him on. They don't know that at the same time, Bill Finger on his last legs, just he's dying penniless.
Yeah, that's just such a dramatic contrast right there.
Yeah, it's just that's that tragedy that Kane can boast, and Finger's just he's penniless right now.
Again, I'm sorry, Dragon, but I can't help but frame this conversation in the hypothetical John Lee Hancock biopic, where it's you see that scene unfold where Kevin Spacey is Bob Kane. It's just at the height of his game, taking all the credit, hogging all the glory. And then you see a bedridden Clark Gregg.
Now we got to talk about this scene. This to me is the most emotionally impactful. One of the most. There are many scenes like this, but I'm saying this scene, and maybe the ending scene, the most emotionally impactful moments I had from this documentary. It's this to me was just the most gripping, sad reveal. And I had no idea about this. I knew half the facts in this movie based on the Fat Man on Batman podcast. I knew which characters Bill Finger created, so I wasn't surprised by that. But this thing, I didn't know how sad this reveal was going to be. That again, Charles Sinclair, we got him to talk to a little bit in this documentary. He's just the fact that he found they were living close to they're living in the same apartment. The fact that he had to find Bill's body.
Mm-hmm.
It's so tragic. Bill Finger dying alone. I just love that we see on we don't see Bill Finger up close. We just we obscure him like this. Oh, it's
definitely tasteful artistic choice right there. Yeah.
Yes, and we have this sad portrait of an overhead shot where just he dies alone.
And Bill Finger in that shot kind of has the same sort of profile as Bob Kane Batman in a way.
In a way, yes. He just dies alone with a black and white television in a small apartment.
Yeah, pretty depressing.
Oh yeah, and then we have I was actually watching this with some friends, and they had no idea. They didn't know anything about Bill Finger, and they were so engrossed with this. I was so proud, they're so engrossed in the story. Just it was oh my god, because Bill Finger, he had a really cursed life almost. Just every sad bit after sad bit crushed him.
Right.
But again, had a happy ending. So right here, this really got him. This is why I bring this up. The whole Potter's Field thing. I knew about.
You brought this up when we talked about 13 Reasons Why as well, the unmarked grave.
Yeah, this is It is just the injustice of the Potter's Field graveless fate that Bill Finger suffered. I mean, this is like it was hit upon Fat Man on Batman the podcast where just it was Mark Tyler Nobleman just pointed out the injustice that he didn't get an obituary, a funeral, or a headstone. He didn't even get a headstone. That's BS.
Yeah,
And
I mean, was it just because of like financial constrictions at the time of the family, or what?
that's the thing. He was so. Honestly, it was that he was. I want to say it was just that he was alone. Honestly, it's the sad fact he was kind of forgotten. That's kind of why there were no measures there. But we find out there was another reason why he was unmarked, possibly.
Uh-huh.
We know someone came for the body, which we know. We find out at the very end. We'll get more on that later. But just the idea he was that kind of he was just kind of that alone at that time.
Uh-huh.
The fact is that no history reveal on the medical examiner's report, no history implying, the man had no history, which is so tragic. Just like a cruel summation of his life. Now, to me, Tiki, speaking of the structure for this film,
Sure.
a lot of people say this would be the low of lows. To me, this strikes me as the end of.
I don't think this is a low of lows. I think this is the transition into like the Empire Strikes Back Act 2.
Yeah, in a way, yes, because this is like the beginning of Nobleman's journey in a way.
Right.
And again, I love this moment too, just like seeing Nobleman, donning the jacket after he's just been fueled by the injustice. I know what I have to do, and it's reflecting back, and then we see this beautiful image of him with the trench coat, like a real detective, with the Batman silhouette on the ground. That's a beautiful, inspiring image.
Yeah.
Because again, he is Batman. As Kevin Smith says later on, he is Batman the Bill Finger. That's amazing.
So would this guy be the Batman to? What is this guy's role to Batman?
Well, I mean, as a detective, I guess technically that would make him the Jim Gordon, the Batman.
Okay. Oh God, we're getting really convoluted with this.
I'm just saying if Bill Finger, if Bill Finger is Batman, then that makes Nobleman most likely Jim Gordon. Just going off of Charles Sinclair or Mark Tyler Nobleman's Jim Gordon, one of the two.
All right.
There's a chance Sinclair could be Alfred. That's the thing. He's either Alfred or Jim Gordon.
This is getting more convoluted than our Fusion Scrooges in season 3 of Christmas in July.
And anyway, let's just maybe less comparisons, I guess. So.
All right.
And again, Nobleman's just kind of embarked on his crazy PI meets documentary mission, looking for leads.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm very curious where exactly this became a documentary and not expanded from a research project to a documentary.
Well, I mean, you know what he might be doing, just because he's speaking of it now. He's trying to get his name on the book. It might be he might be recording this for evidence, possibly, just to show hey, this is where Bill Finger, showing the locations and getting interviews with people.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay,
this is my logic for it, why he would be recording these interviews.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that we have all this all this footage of him going around doing this detective work. It's just really cool.
So I'd imagine a lot of it, obviously the stuff later, closer to 20, probably between 2014 to 16. That's probably that's the documentary. Definitely okay. The rest of it's probably just footage and also a few things like home movies just kind of put together.
Sure.
Yes. Now we learn about Fred Finger. Want to say anything about Fred Finger?
Fred Finger. Yeah, he's definitely sort of the. If there was a more tragic figure in the film than Bill, it's definitely Fred. It just he kind of. Again, with the Father's Day thing, I definitely think he's the figure in the film that reflects that the most. You know what I mean? He's this sort of reclusive guy who had friends, but he was very much in the same vein of being forgotten about, at least by his own family. You know what I mean? That's the tragic part of Fred.
Yeah. Yeah, again, with Fred, when we hit upon the tragedy of Fred's family, we do definitely hit upon kind of that theme of fathers and legacy, and kind of how legacy hangs over these kind of the father's head like a cloud in a way, and Fred's family.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do the myth of the family, hey, my grandfather created Batman. No, he didn't. Get out of here.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a schoolyard tale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a horrible way to go through life. You know your grandfather did this amazing thing, and no one believes you because you have no proof.
Right, right.
There, again, I think I'm going with the Jim Gordon thing, possibly with Charles, or the Alfred thing, because again, he has glasses. Like, he's really kind of big, notable glasses. I don't know.
I can see Alfred.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we just gonna create the entire Bat family?
No,
Is
no,
Fred
let's.
is Fred Robin?
That's the thing. Either Mark or Fred's right. I'm sorry.
Oh God.
Let's ease off the comparisons. You got me down the rabbit hole, especially after you bring the Clark Gregg casting just for the movie too. I'm loving that.
Anyways. Well, as I said, I think it is kind of fun to talk about this hypothetical movie in the midst of our conversation. You know,
Sure.
spices things up. Anyways, go ahead.
So we have Lynn Simmons here, the second wife of Bill Finger, the mystery second wife of Bill Finger.
Hmm. Now, I'm sure this woman must have been just a treasure trove of knowledge for for the crew and for the whole story to kind of unravel.
Yeah. In a way, just all of these leads, in a way, are kind of like until you get to the big, super important one at the end of this journey. It's one step forward, two steps back, and it's like, okay, I'm getting close to Bill Finger. I'm in a place Bill Finger was, and it's like, okay, that looks like, again with Fred, of course, he was Fred, who again just seemingly to someone investigating, okay, well, Fred he was gay and he died, which means it's the end of the bloodline. So
Right.
presumably it's the end of the bloodline. And that means like this journey is going to be really difficult to get credit because if there are no heirs, you can't just easily say because if you're an heir, you have leverage,
Hmm. Sure,
which
sure.
means he has no leverage. Which means he's going to have to compile a lot of evidence, which again may suggest the videotaping.
Hmm.
Now this to me was this is sad too because trying to get credit around '89 is what Simmons and her what
And
Dylan
this is
Simmons were
really
going to
like
do.
out of all the movies, this is like the big pop culture event that he really should have had his name on.
And something telling is that in those the cinematic saga of Batman, those documentaries that were on the box sets, Bob Kane, Elizabeth Kane remarked about Bob Kane. Just mentioned that Bob Kane actually got really emotional in the limousine ride before he came out in his velour Batcave. He was like he was genuinely convinced that like they're all here for something I did. I wonder if
Well,
those tears might have been entirely out of just buying into it, or just out of maybe a little bit of sadness over Bill.
this sort of reminds me of my remember my whole Mary Poppins commentary with Richard Sherman.
Right.
He's like, anyways, yeah, just kind of like those obscure little tidbits of documentaries that kind of like you look back on after you know more about the person and be like, huh, I
Yeah.
wonder if he was feeling that way in the interview.
That's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
And here's something. So what I think the reason the '89 thing didn't pan out, Tiki, but of course we're seeing Batman unfold right now. We're seeing a lot of great little just how big '89 was.
I mean, it really was like, we talk a lot about Phantom Menace being like the big pop culture event when we were alive. 89, Dragon, that was 1 year before my time. So that was the one, like, I definitely remember in my childhood, like, even, it permeated pop culture so much that, when I was like 5, 6 years old, single was still everywhere. You know what I mean? The poster and everything was still like a huge part of pop culture.
Yeah,
By
we
the
have
time I
King.
was, yeah.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, just by the time I was old enough to like understand what pop culture was, it was still everywhere. You know what I mean? It lasted for years.
And the thing with Kane as Bruce Wayne, we saw in the velour Batcave. It was kind of him as Bruce Wayne, but also kind of the Stanley showman on the red carpet. Stanley kind of rocking the interviews on the red carpet in a way.
Sure, sure.
And I think the reason '89 didn't pan out, as they kind of allude to, is that you see Tiki and when Superman before Batman in '89, obviously there was the Superman '78 film.
Of course.
And when that was released, Richard Donner, he was such a great guy. He forced DC into a position where they're going to have to make a deal with Siegel and Schuster to get them their names back on the book because they had their names taken.
Oh,
off the
nice,
book.
nice.
Now, unfortunately, as I'm finding out now, apparently that wasn't the end of it. But it's really disheartening to find out now. But they revealed in this documentary at the end of it. But the point is, I would imagine to avoid that. That's why they shot down the Finger thing. They didn't want another Superman '78 forcing someone to get credit. Like we don't want to be pigeonholed to giving credit again.
I could see that. Yeah, yeah.
It's my logic on them, how that possibly came to be.
Fair enough.
Now here we have the big reveal in Bob Kane. Sorry, in Batman and Me, the Bob Kane biography here, where it's where one Bill Finger is mentioned. Again, it's kind of neat that we did have a Bill Finger mention worked into like in that the mini documentary featurette I was talking about, but also it's in the book in a few places.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I think I'm sorry, it's one place in the book, but there's some other if you look really hard, you can find some other references to this. But the fact they did give one nod to Bill Finger, like a regret, he expressed regret over what he did to Bill Finger.
It's almost kind of like the the Frost Nixon thing in a way.
In a way, yes, and I think with Bob Kane, he's painted himself into such a corner where he's just trying to go to the grave with some honor. It's kind of what he's trying to do. He's just trying to keep all the prestige.
This documentary does definitely kind of ask the question, was Bob Kane living a lie essentially? This is pretty heavy stuff to get into. Go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of a lie, just getting into this, he did actually try to cover his tracks here. So this is a famous thing, Tiki. As I mentioned with Da Vinci, so there's this famous Da Vinci sketch. Always like an inspiring thing that Bob Kane brought up whenever I looked at a Bob Kane interview where he mentioned, and again, I believe most of this to be true, that he looked at the Leonardo da Vinci Flying Man design, and that was and they had this quote on it. It says, "Yeah, your creation shall have no other wings than that of a bat," which I can see definitely inspiring Batman. So that's such an inspiring quote with that image, which kind of
it almost kind of reminds me of the famous, the Stan Lee story. Well, I needed an idea for a hero, and I looked up and I saw a spider crawling on the wall.
Yeah, something along those lines. It's kind of I can see that part of it's true, but here, basically, him drawing a sketch in the Da Vinci style with Batman on it in the style that Bill Finger's input created. So this is him trying to cover his tracks, but this is a forged drawing.
Sure.
So he's trying to say that basically this him covering his tracks is covering up the kind of the lies we've been going with here. That in 1934, which obviously is before 39, which means it was from he had this in the back of his mind the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's him trying to rewrite history in a way.
Yeah, but as you said, it's kind of like as this documentary kind of explores the moral ambiguity of of Bob Kane, how much of this was him trying to cover his tracks, and how much of this was him, doing so out of regret and shame. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because think about it. I mean, at the time, he's got a wife to support. He wants to leave his wife with something. I don't know if he had children or not. So I'm saying, there might be a family element to consider. If he works Bill Finger in there, I mean, in Bob Kane's mindset might be if I work Bill Finger, if I stick up for him, I give him credit. Towards the end of my life here, I could, basically the residuals I'm going to get from my family, any lasting thing, it might, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying he might be worried about a detrimental kind of impact to what his family be getting after he's gone.
I mean, that's not great, but it's understandable.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying to a guy who's paying himself in the corner, you can understand, if you were if you were in that deep, you'd understand kind of the mindset there.
I love that picture of him in the '60s with the Batman mask.
Yeah,
that shows up a couple times.
That's the thing. It's a Nobleman's thumb there. How long can he ride it out? That sort of thing. I'm in so deep, I just gotta ride it out. And again, he gave a mention to Bill Finger in the thing that's going to be there after he's gone. His biography, his about his life's work.
Right.
So as Nobleman's going to point out in a moment, of course, Bill Finger had no obituary, funeral, or headstone. Yet at the same time, Bob Kane, I remember this, Tiki. Oh my God, I remember this from that Batman and Bob Kane featurette. Is that I love the heck out of that tombstone. There was a really emotional moment in that thing. It was it built it's like this. It goes by in a moment, but it has this music. It's shot so well. It reveals the bat symbol on the tombstone really well. It's that always kind of struck me. It's oh my God, that's a really lovely tombstone. Secondly, it's it just shows you the impact. It speaks glowingly about Bob Kane.
Look at all that text. You know what I mean? It's that is a...
Yeah, it's Norman Bates made that.
I wasn't going to go there, but yeah, sure. If you want to pull
I'm just saying Norman
Motel reference.
Just folks, he wrote he had like paragraphs upon paragraphs of nice things about his mother.
Not everyone's
That's
watched
kind
Bates Motel, Dragon. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm just
right.
teasing.
Right. But still, you see the again that tombstone was like there's always kind of a really cool like testament to Bob Kane's life and his work, and to find out the majority of that's not true.
Yeah, and not only
rocks
is
your
the
world
majority
a
of that not true, but the guy who should get that credit, no grave, no markings, nada.
It's not fair at all.
Yeah, it really is. Like this is definitely the point of the documentary where it starts ramping up and the injustice of it really starts to, which is ironic because it's like it's the death of of Bob Kane, which should be kind of another sad moment, but instead we're just left with like, oh, like okay, the injustices are sort of adding up here.
Yeah. And also something just that I love the transition here, which Nobleman, I love that he's not making it personal because he defends Kane to an extent when he can, kind of like we are in a way. But
Of course,
as he puts it, like he's talking about, I don't know what kind of like father, grandfather, and what kind of person Bob Kane was. He talking about Bob Kane in a family sense, where we then cut to Nobleman's family, and his family is simply adorable.
yes.
That girl's like the sweetest thing ever. Like the thing on her finger saying, "Mark Tyler," it's adorable.
She's definitely like Kaylee Ehrmantraut level.
Oh yeah. Also, it's kind of funny. When I show this to my friends, they pointed this out that the kids look exactly like the parents.
They do.
Oh, this is so clever here. We're just going through literally a Batman. He's asking about Bill Finger. He's asking. It's kind of like how in Death of Superman Lives, what happened, that documentary where they went up to people wearing Superman shirts and asked them about Nick Cage's Superman, if they'd buy it or not. Of course, the various eras and the types of Batman, with a lot of 89, a lot of 60s.
I wonder if Petaluma Batman knows about Bill Finger.
I would hope so.
I would hope so.
And again, if no one walked up to me, I'd tell him, "Oh yeah, Bill Finger, he was a Batman writer, wasn't he?" At that time, if he walked to me in 2008, I'd tell him.
I mean, if he walked up to me, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I saw your documentary, dude. Good work."
Well, now, yeah, I'm talking about 2008. It's when this is like way back when. There's that tracking shot again.
Oh yeah.
Dum.
Of course, 2008, as you mentioned, was another spike in Batmania, like the Dark Knight Dragon. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, I have stories about that midnight screening, man. That was back when we actually did midnight screenings and they screened the movies at midnight. Right. Oh god. I'm sorry, I don't want to go into like a nostalgic, like waxing poetic about the Dark Knight, but
right. Well, anyway, I'm saying like this is actually I'm sorry to be technical, it's like around 2007. I know after we had the big plot point, then it's 2008, so it's kind of it's getting there. So it's kind of where we're at right now. We're looking into Fred. Basically, he's looking for any connections that Fred had that we can maybe work off of. So he already called every Fred Finger in the book and did some ridiculous things to find Fred Finger, find connections. But then he's going through kind of some logical stuff here. Again, very deep cut sort of stuff here, where he's going through the obituaries, which come up by the page instead of just by a specific name. Again, you're going through
oh god,
a Century Microfilm to find this.
Oh man. Oh Jesus Christ, that is time consuming.
That's the thing.
I hear you.
Of course, we find we find the connection there. After with Portia, we have Judy and Eric Flam, if I'm getting that right. And this is like a lovely thing here. And essentially, this is kind of the end of Act 2, if you ask me.
It's a transitioning point, yeah.
Well, I just figure it's like it's like now like we have like kind of hope is introduced at the end of Act 2, and then we kind of go to like the big kind of like now we're chugging towards the happy end.
Would you say that ironically enough, the death of Bob Kane and that reveal of the tombstone would be the low of lows?
Possibly. I think just the edit. I just think the style of this isn't doing like kind of the conventional, like we end the lows on the end of Act 2 or not. But if there is a low lows, it might be Bob Kane.
Dragon, you and I just want to point out, we talk about the 3-act structure more than anyone else on the internet.
No,
we are always going on about 3-act structure, Dragon. We are always going on about it.
And this is, I love this in the animation here with Nobleman kind of realizing, oh my God, Finger has a granddaughter. Because I love it. He gives the same expression as Bill Finger as we've seen him. Like he gives that little like that tilt of the head smirk.
Mm-hmm. Great moment envisioning the movie marquee in his head and everything.
Heir to the Batman.
And this is really this is where this is where fiction sort of starts to meet reality. You know what I mean? This is where he's realizing himself like, oh my God, I really am in the middle of like a freaking detective story right here. And I'm the main character.
It's like the big plot twist that that Fred, despite kind of the obvious assumption that the bloodlines ended, oh my God, no, he had a daughter.
Robot Chicken M. Night Shyamalan would be proud.
Yes, he would be proud.
What a twist!
So we have Athena Finger, choose really good fitting name. Just Athena is very kind of like monolithic. I don't know. I like it.
It is. Yeah.
And I love this. I just love Nobleman having the realization after going through most likely microfilm to go through all his obituaries. He might have gone online, but regardless, just figuring out like in his old mindset of like for all those years, most likely 2000 onwards, most likely. Digging into this, and now it's like it's the era of MySpace, where he's going to be able to, to find like a page on Athena Finger, where he hasn't been thinking of that mindset at all.
Yeah, that's a really interesting kind of commentary on just research in general. You know what I mean? Which, again, this documentary hits on a lot of points. Like narrative structure being one of them, of course, history, but as I said, just the research in general. This is very much a research-intensive story. It's a story about research.
Like honestly, for me, it's like I think Act 2 ends with the fist bump moment he's talking about. Then Act 3 is like when
keep in mind in the 3-act structure, Dragon Act, like the end of Act 2 of E.T., which is the movie that I was taught the 3-act structure on, is E.T. coming back to life after the Low of Lows.
Right.
That's the end of Act 2.
Sure.
So the end of Act 2 is right after the Low of Lows.
There you go.
I talk way too much about this stuff.
But I just do love that reveal of it's like the thing just instantly kind of gives him like a sense that he's on the right path. And the first picture is a dog named Bruce Wayne.
Yes, that's just like such an aha moment.
There we go. Here's most likely the beginning of Act 3. So now we're on the path.
Yay!
Yeah, we meet Athena.
Yeah.
And again, just as we've kind of said already, again, the thing's been living with the tragedy of the girl whose grandfather created Batman, yet no one believes her.
Yeah, right. It's like Batman is just sort of like woven its way into the fabric of the Finger family.
Yeah, just in a way, Tiki, I'm glad you hit upon that because just again looking at kind of Finger as kind of the Batman out of the Batman Bob Kane kind of sort of thing. Bob Kane's Bruce Wayne, he's Batman. So sticking with that main comparison, I'm just saying that the idea that what the fatherly comparison, I guess.
Bill Finger will always be Clark Gregg.
Sure. But anyway, go
ahead.
Looking at Bill Finger as Batman's father, you see the traits in which Bill Finger's life has been comprised of passing down to Batman in some way. Batman, he's born from tragedy, and of course, he's just always he's escaping that tragedy. And again, much like Bill Finger's doing it, he's doing thankless work just because it's the right thing to do.
Sure.
He's never going to be happy. So it's kind of that endless tragedy Batman's kind of working with, and in this case, we have the Finger family has been living with kind of constant, kind of tragedy after tragedy. Bill's death being unknown, and the curse of being unknown has been in the Finger family, where again Fred Finger, Fred and Athena didn't really know each other that well because he died too early.
Right.
And the fact again, he was let's face it, he was after Fred kind of. Basically, go over. He was bisexual. He's after kind of making that after going through that, again, there was a separation between the divorce between the parents.
I like how the documentary points out it wasn't as if Fred was just abandoning his family, more so that he was finding a new family. You know
exactly.
What I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So there was a divide there, and obviously, that means the girl didn't get to know her father as well, because again, there's always that divide, and just the fact that a divorce as well.
Right.
And again, there's that theme of the movie again, just kind of not knowing who you're not.
Oh yeah.
losing your father or not knowing your father, which of course is the story of Batman, losing your father at an early age, or losing your father in terms of just kind of not knowing your father.
Well, I mean, I'd say with the with Batman versus Superman and the pearls and everything, I'd say it's more of a mother story. Why did you say that? I'm so sorry, Draken. I'm so sorry. I had to sneak it in there somewhere.
You better not pull that when we get to the ending, because I love that ending.
It's such a fucking stupid moment. Not the ending, the why did you say that name?
Yeah, good. You better not say that about the ending of this film. I will beat you down on this commentary for all to hear.
I'm talking about the Martha moment, okay?
All right.
The Martha moment will forever be hilarious. Go ahead.
Okay, now getting to this. So we have a really great setup here. We have some good setups I didn't catch on the first watch here, where Fred is having a moment with his child on the beach here, and of course we're setting this up for a big impactful moment at the end there, where it's parent and child on the beach again.
Sure, definitely.
And this is really kind of again, this is like a sad image here of look how we saw Fred Fingers having this goofy beard, and we got to know him for that, being it's good old Fred Fingers. Look how sickly, just like eating the Santa hat he is.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, Dragon, I feel like the image of sick people in Santa hats is used a lot. I'm not trying to be funny or anything.
I don't really get where that's coming from, but okay.
I'm just saying, it seems like maybe it's just because around Christmas there's a lot of Christmas stories about that kind of stuff. Anyways,
this is going to be kind of an odd Batman parallel, but just the Finger family with Batman again. Just with the moment that Fred's widow has just gone through. I'm sorry, that Athena's mother went through. Sorry, is she had this great moment where Fred told her while he was really nearing the end. He told her, "I have to die." She invited him to stay, and he says, "I have to die." That in a way that kind of reminds me a little bit of it could be stretching here, that it's really someone being compelled to a city. Again, another Batman-esque element of being you're so tied into a city.
Well, I think it's more so what I was talking about the family thing.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, but I'm just saying there's also maybe another kind of similarity to Batman with that. Is she being?
No, I can see it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take away your point. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you're right. There's also that reason, of course, being the main undercurrent. Mm-hmm. And it's just, of course, just really, really sad seeing Athena get all broken hearted over here. And again, she has absolutely every right to be.
Oh yeah. Oh man!
I mean, you got to imagine this whole ordeal of what the subject matter of this movie is. I mean, not just for documentary purposes. I'm saying going through what she did. She's really brave in this film. I mean, she's a big character in herself. She's the one who, Nobleman of course got the gears working. Well, he did definitely get Finger's name on it. Athena is pivotal in that. She's the one who has to. She's essentially, she fires at the Death Star. Essentially, that's kind of her role.
Right.
Well, Han Solo got us there. I mean, again, Luke's the one who's firing at the Death Star. That's Athena. Athena's Luke.
Okay. So now we're gonna mix metaphors here.
All right. Sorry.
You're the one who keeps preaching no comparisons, and I'm just giving you a hard time. All right.
And again, this is a. This is a real sad bit coming up here, where basically we go through, and this scene, this illustrated image to me is just so sad and tragic coming up, where we learn that there was an attempt close to '89 to go to DC and to get to get Bill Finger credit, and it's not this image. This image is also good. Just Fred getting kind of the pat on the shoulder, where he's treated like family, but hey, we'll treat you like family to placate you, but we're not going to give you anything.
It's kind of a Howard Hamlin-esque move.
In a way, yes. And here's the sad,
I love Hamlin. Go ahead.
And this is the sad image I'm talking about here coming up. This to me is just a really impactful thing. Fred Finger's walking to '89. He's hoping against hope that he's going to see his father's name. Right. And he doesn't. Just created by Bob Kane. That to me is one of those great tragic portraits of the film.
No, I hear you.
And in this image here too, just seeing the Bob Kane on one side, and all the obscure Finger stuff on the left.
Yeah, really, really well framed. I think this film in general just has a very, very good sense of art direction to it. With
absolutely
between the animation, which of course is a great sort of visual representation of the artwork in his books, to the reference photos, and to the way that the reference photos are kind of compared and contrasted against each other in shots, like you just pointed out. It's just all all very well composed visually. It's not. It's definitely this documentary very easily could have been a talking head documentary. And while
Yeah.
while there certainly are interviews in it, there's so much visually going on that sort of offsets the talking head element.
Yes, and we just saw kind of Athena going through the childhood story. She'd write a paper about what her grandfather did. No one believed him. It was so it just kind of hit upon me again just how well it was executed. That they used like a motion comic style to get the panels moving, get the artwork moving,
Sure.
and there was this beautiful. There's like this. It speaks volumes where the teacher's looking at the report, and then basically the way her eyes snap up at her, that look of like, okay, this kid's obviously someone's off with this kid. Just that look of like
this
that.
This kid has too vivid of an imagination. Someone's been reading too many comic books.
But again, they just captured that look of doubt so well. Like, oh my god, it's so tragic. Just looking at this kid, like this kid. Obviously, this isn't true.
Right.
And now again, this is basically now it's all put on Athena's shoulders here. Athena again, she's being the heir. Again, she has the leverage, and she's the one who Nobleman's gotten her as far as he can.
Sure.
In the story, I love that we've been it's been built around Nobleman's kind of doing everything within his power to get finger cred and tracking down the Finger family.
He's passing the torch of the story along to her.
Yes, absolutely. And Kevin Smith, they've done things inside DC, and they show you that thing she was in. Basically, you walk into the offices of DC and have all the rare comics and drawers and everything. It was kind of a neat little thing there. So now we're definitely in 2008. So 2008 at the premiere of The Dark Knight, and this is where they're trying to placate. On my rewatch here is taking notes. Like it seems to me that DC was blindsided towards the last minute as The Dark Knight's coming out that hey, the heir to Bill Finger exists, and she's
dun dun dun.
And I imagine DC at that point they're thinking, oh god, we're so last minute we cannot add a name to the credits at this point. Just we're going to keep her happy. Then we'll figure out what to do before the next Batman movie comes out.
Right.
And I imagine that's why by the next Batman movie we have another big moment that kind of falls in Athena's lap, which we'll get to.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have, and I love how they break this down. It's very true. You're right, Tia. This sort of thing is very Hamlin-esque. It's sort of like what a law firm or something. This is what big business does. We have the thank you payments.
Oh yeah.
Basically, these thank you payments are distributed to avoid lawsuits.
Right.
To avoid kind of like a big kind of drawn Siegel Schuster
thing.
Thank you
payments, I think, is kind of a nice term for hush money.
Absolutely, yes, you're right. Yeah. You got to remember, DC's basically they're dreading another Siegel Schuster because they've been like Siegel Schuster was a public. Basically, those two Siegel and Schuster was a public version of what Finger's doing here, what the Finger family's doing here.
Sure.
But no one knows about
and
Finger
keep in
necessarily.
Mind,
even
as you pointed out, the time frame of this was just very, very sensitive. With The Dark Knight was such a critical film. I mean, you had the all eyes were on it. Of course, the tragic passing of Heath Ledger right before that.
Yes.
Like that just made the media attention for The Dark Knight at such an all-time peak. Dragon. I don't remember any movie that was that hyped up other than say Star Wars The Force Awakens. It's like The Force Awakens, Dark Knight. You know what I mean? It's in that same caliber.
Now I love this, and this to me is very key in this documentary. I love that we spit in, especially in the third act. Kevin Smith, of all people, who we know from his work on Superman Lives, who's seen the kind of the raw end of DC, seen the raw end of Warner Brothers more specifically.
Of course.
Again, Warner Brothers more specifically, he explains how this process, basically why Warner's and DC is afraid to give credit to Bill Fingers. That basically it would open up the floodgates to everyone who wants a piece of Batman or any character from any franchise. It basically says, hey, this someone came out of the woodworks and kind of claimed half of Batman.
yeah.
And again, it's not just. Again, not really on DC either. Like DC is a spoke in the wheel, but again, this is for the whole.
If anything, it's more on Bob Kane himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's the finger to point the blame at when it all comes down to it.
And DC just they're kind of over a barrel because of Kane. Again, Warner's is kind of like that's the big corporate conglomerate that's kind of DC builds a lot of their stuff around the movies, of course, and vice versa.
Of course.
So, of course, now we reach 2012. 2012, of course, two big things happen. Dark Knight Rises come out, and Build the Boy Wonder comes out now that he has an ending to his book.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is the Tiki. I very much encourage you to buy to look into this book. Really, really good. And you're right, very Clark Gregg, yes.
I'm so proud of that.
I am. I'm very proud of you too. I just can't explain. I stay focused here, but yes.
I think I remember watching this TED Talk, actually.
Yeah, this is like 3 minutes on YouTube. But my God, he gets that entire book in 3 minutes. And again, this is the era I was. Tiki, essentially, this is the era where I found out about Bill Finger. Like, what
sure.
I really found out
this
about
was
him.
definitely the era. The Fat Man on Batman stuff and whatnot. It was definitely where the limelight was very much being cast on him.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, I think Kevin Smith's just kind of perfect spokesman. Like, the guy had nothing to lose to kind of voice what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, so basically in 2012 and especially 14 after that podcast and saw the NPR stuff and the TED Talk and everything, now the word's getting spread through it's like a very ground roots campaign.
Sure.
This is like we're now like the word of mouth is getting spread around. Like, oh my God! And then they're seeing articles all over the place about Bill Finger got screwed out of credit, and people are going to click on that saying, "What the heck? Who's Bill Finger?" And I love this. To me, it was always brilliant. Like
the Bill Finger,
yes, the Bill Foam Finger. I love that. I love that idea so much. I want one.
Because let's be honest, that imagery kind of instantly springs to your mind when you hear the word finger. You know what I mean?
Yes. And again, in a way, it's this dumb but very, very poignant pun on Bill Finger. He had a finger in it. He did. He just he had like his finger on the page in a way for Batman. It's like he's the one like putting his finger there to save the page. Like, yeah, I did this, and you keep flipping through. You completely forgot. Oh yeah, there's the hand. There's the finger.
Sure.
So there's Dr. Travis Langley. Now, Tiki, this guy's important because he actually brought Batman to classrooms and he teaches Batman psychology courses.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
He writes a great. He's written a few great books. I mean, he's really good. He and Michael Houston are really good friends, and they do a lot of panels together. These are the guys who kind of champion Batman in real life. They kind of bring Batman out of the comics into the public consciousness. And of course, this unfortunately is one of the last live action versions of Adam West. We will.
Oh, my heart! It hurts. Yes. Oh.
But you know what? It does.
Rest in peace, dear sir.
It does.
Dragon, I'm sorry. That wound is just still so fresh.
It is. Man. But you know what's nice about it, though? It's that I love that they're on the panel with Adam West right now, with Lee Merriweather, with the rest of the 60s. Yes, and just with that, it's the idea, Adam West, like one of the last times we saw him, just he was given given kudos, given kind of a moment of time with the Finger family, the remnants of the very beginnings of Batman while he's kind of reaching.
Which is kind of a really good sort of bookend to the whole documentary. You know what I mean? Because the height of the height of Bob Kane's whole moral dilemma and whatnot
was the 60s. Again, the icon of the 60s.
Submarine shirt. I'm sorry, I just have to point that out. That's a badass yellow submarine shirt.
Yes, but yeah, I see what you're saying. It's absolutely. It's like the pinnacle of success where that choice could have been made, and with the symbol of that show.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm getting really into this cosplay, like that Heath Ledger Joker and the Harley Quinn. Really good stuff.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just being distracted. I'm distracted by all the cool cosplays.
And what Kevin Smith's saying while we're seeing the cosplays and the Comic Cons here is that the comic book fans are again the most virile and most passionate people, and he's absolutely right. These so I want to hear about Bill Finger. I believe me, I would have done anything. Mark told Tyler Nobleman again. I made that video because just if you can help, that by all means do it. And I was like, I helped as much as I could.
Right.
It wasn't a lot, but I helped as much as I could. Again, it's a really nice sentiment that the Bat fans, especially in this moment coming up at WonderCon, they really right here. Basically, they catch DC with their pants down. They kind of call them on it. And I hope, I would love it if the actual guy who walked up was in a Batman. This might be an artistic, but imagine how perfect this would be, though.
Now that's a movie moment right there.
Yes,
that's a John Lee Hancock moment.
And of course, for Larry again, I'm here not knowing what to say. He just gives oh yeah, we're all cool with the Finger family, just making an assumption.
right.
And he gets raked over the DC gets raked over the coals for it. And again, this is one of the things that puts pressure on DC.
Of course.
Because unfortunately, this to me, I really wish they could have just solved this a year earlier, so it could have coalesced with the 75th anniversary. Would have been perfect.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dragon, I really hate to say it. I really, really hate to go this far, but it wasn't the best movie. It wasn't the best first movie for him to get a credit on. I'm saying with Batman versus Superman.
I know. I'm just,
I'm taking a Batman versus Superman shot.
Anyway, well, I'll defend that when we get to the end.
All right.
But
Dragon, can I talk about the structure of my hypothetical biopic for a moment?
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I want to mention that they left one thing out of this documentary that I really wish they could have brought up, but I understand like they had other stuff. We're really getting to the climax with the lawyer stuff now, so they had to kind of get rid of it. But Scott Snyder championed, and this is Bill Finger didn't get credit until 2015. He did get his name publicly on a Batman comic thanks to Scott Snyder.
Nice.
They in 2014 for the 75th anniversary, they released free issues of Detective Comics number 27, a reprint. And they had a few other stories in there. I guess because a few other stories are in there, basically Scott Snyder he really kind of pushed these because he was the big writer at that time. He still is, but I'm saying he was really at the height of his thing in 2014.
Right.
He forced them to put Bob Kane and Bill Finger on the cover, and it might be really nice. I have to look into it again, but now Finger has with Bill Finger. That one might have been and Bill Finger. Might be a rarity. I don't know.
Okay.
And that was a big, at least in 2014, he got something out of it.
Yeah. Anyways, really quick. My pitch for the structure.
What's the structure?
So to get as much Clark Gregg as possible, we kind of have like a dual timeline, right?
Yeah.
We have a timeline with Clark Gregg and Kevin Spacey sort of creating the character, Kevin Spacey doing all the doing all the schmoozing, and Clark Gregg kind of in the trenches. And then that would be going on at the same time where we have the author and Athena and that whole storyline. Like, basically, I think the moment the film should pick up is at the Athena thing. Like, that should be where the present day stuff picks up.
Okay.
So that would be the jumping off point, and that would be the main conflict, them battling with Warner Brothers as the Bill Finger and Kevin Spacey stuff is going on in the past timeline.
I like it.
I'm getting way too into this.
Well, you sold me a ticket. I'm down for it. So now,
now we just need to sell John Lee Hancock and Warner Brothers and DC on it. We're halfway there, Dragon.
We can have Kevin Smith play himself. We just,
God.
And the Bill Finger's name getting out there.
Right.
So here, let me just boil this down here. What our lawyers are doing here, and this is they have like the best bluff ever going on because basically they studying copyright law very, very intently. They kind of learned that essentially, and this I love this that Bob Kane, in a way, accidentally he gave Bill Finger credit on tape, which this is the evidence they can use to say that Bob Kane himself said Bill Finger created 50 to 75% of Batman.
That, my friend, is what I call a smoking gun.
Yes, which essentially it's it's under joint works, which means that as unlikely as it is, but still it's a bluff. That if they wanted to, they could take Batman away from Warner Brothers.
Oh God, DC. How crazy would that be? Oh man,
I'm saying that now. I'm not saying I'm no lawyer, so I don't know
that's
how
like alternate history, like the South wins the Civil War type shit.
So I'm not sure it work exactly like that. I'm just saying that's to me what it sounds like. That the threat, the legalese threat is that hey, we have actual more ownership than Bob Kane, so we could take it out of theaters. Which when you take it out of Warner Brothers, absolutely they do not want. So basically saying, hey, we could do this, but we don't want to do this. We want to strike a bargain with you. So what do you say? We just put his name on the book. Essentially, so it's a very it's very civil bluff in a way. It's like, hey, we have the leverage here. We're going to work with you, and of course they're going to obviously go for that.
Sure.
And here we go with Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Again, the other guys, short of Bill Finger, got screwed, very screwed on the rights issues in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can't believe. I found it out here that apparently it's still going on with their heirs. Like, their children aren't getting the rights anymore. Huh. If I'm right, and I could be, I got to read into this again, but I got to look into it again. But if I'm understanding it correctly, Jerry and Joe, they got the rights, but the family might not have.
Oh, wow.
So that might be
that sounds like it's like a legal loophole right there.
So that's the only way I can figure that they got screwed out of it again because they get in.
Yeah, Richard right. They got screwed out of it, and then they went to court, and then like once again, like jumping through the legal hoops, the contractual, loopholes and whatnot.
Because again, Richard Donner got him credit. I thought it was put to bed at that point. And apparently now it's back. It looks like, at least in 2013. I know according to the what we see, 2013 it was brought back, so it's most likely still going on. Well, Jack Kirby also has some. His family's having some issues now with rights too. So I don't know if it's still going on, but at least in 2014 it was going on. So might be.
And again, call Saul.
The point is, folks, I'm going to advertise this right now for a little PSA here. This there is a chair that goes on every Comic-Con called Heroes. I believe it's called Heroes Relief, and basically this is like, these are charities that are designed to prevent stuff like this from happening, like what happened to Bill Finger and Jerry and Joel Schuster, and Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster, and Jack Kirby. Basically, it protects the comic writer and artist, their rights, and if anything bad happens to them, it'll help them out. It's kind of nice. It's a good charity, and that's why it's called the Heroes Initiative. Sorry, it's the Heroes Initiative. That's what it's called. So, and basically, she's kind of going through the chicken battle she went through. Basically, she kind of calls them out, and she knows the studio and DC doesn't want to risk losing Batman to any capacity, so they're going to strike a deal.
Yeah, at the same time, she also knows her limitations. She knows she can't spend 5 years in court battling this. You know what I mean? And
this is why Bill Finger and your usual, especially Jerry and Joe, they usually kind of lose these battles because, again, they're realizing we're going up against something too big. We don't
exactly. It's just like kind of just the the bitch of corporate America.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much like that moment from Better Call Saul, where he's pointing out that, no, you're going to be in court for years. You're going to lose your mortgage and your house and everything.
Right.
It's that handshake deal again.
Oh yeah.
Again, and this to me is a really good image for the film too. Just these two guys at the drawing board of that big, again, the origin of Batman moment beyond the alleyway.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they're kind of going through kind of simplified already here, but it's again just kind of they have them in the position they want them.
Right. So essentially, this goes from like a historical piece to a detective story, and ends in a courtroom drama.
Yes, well,
that's like our 3 acts
behind closed doors, technically, but yes.
Kind
of a lawyer thriller in a way.
Right.
All right, folks, very gripping stuff. No, seriously, it is really gripping stuff.
It is, yeah.
So again, it's really good that we had a happy ending, happy resolution here. Now, you're going to note that Nobleman's still going to be fighting for even more rights for. I'll put a pin in that. So we're coming back with Mark Tyler Nobleman here, and it's nice to see that while he is acknowledging that he had to pass the torch to Athena, he's still a family man. As Bill Finger's a big pillar of his life, he still is a good father. Just connecting the father.
I mean, and as we like the moment that we saw with his daughter, it was cute, but it was also a little bit of a sad commentary, right? Like how she, like one of the big names in the household is Bill Finger. Like that moment just kind of definitely reflects on his life revolves around Bill Finger to a certain extent.
Yes, and now here's the big payoff. And Tiki, I remember where I was during this moment. It's like this September 2015 when I was so psyched when this was announced. Just like Nobleman is right now. It's that just this learning, because I was like, a part of me was like saying like, yeah, Nobleman did it. He did it. when we learned that, and I remember when this is announced, and I probably told you about this, and we announced this when we did Gotham season 2. When Gotham.
That's right. Yeah.
Because they announced it was going to be on the first time Bill Finger. Here's how it worked to you. So the first time Bill Finger is getting credit was on Gotham, and it was on Gotham, Batman v Superman, and now where it's at is now he's on all the comics. So they were dipping a toe in the water with the media.
So I love this framework with his daughter, right, where we see her like years earlier, and she's just a tiny little kid, and she barely has any idea of the whole concept of what he's doing, and then we see him. We see it like when he's accomplished his goal, and she's old enough to realize exactly what it means for him. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just a good sort of passage of time right there.
And this is beautiful here. They got tweets from he's getting tweets from not only Kevin Smith, who again says, you're Batman for Bill Finger, but then he got it from the voice of Batman himself, Kevin Conroy, congratulating him. There's all the congratulations pouring in. It's really nice that Nobleman got that proper thanks too.
Sure.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right too. Again, it's like just we saw he was a good father and in a way just looking at kind of the themes of fatherhood.
Like I feel like that moment with his daughter, it's like like the hard work paid off. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The obsession paid off.
Yes. And in a way, we see just when we check back with Nobleman, because you think the story's over for him, but no, he's still kind of pointing out that this was still an injustice, and he's still just trying to. I don't know how specific he's being with it. I don't know if he's like really like. He's obviously not going to the same lengths, but he might be working to get the width off and just turn the width into an and. Because right now, as credited in the comics, which again, that's now where it's at. Now he's in the comics, which is a big. I don't know if Nobleman made that happen or not. He might have, again, with still continuing the fight. Again, he's just the guy's a miracle worker.
Sure.
Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger, and soon, maybe one day in the future, who knows? It could be if they make it like a perfect world. I don't know. Batman created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger.
And Bill Finger, yes.
I'm content with, but if they want to go and,
right.
I don't doubt the man. Of course, I'm going for like all the ridiculously and how it's hard to find images about with Bill Finger. Again, I think no one's just gonna be happy when we have like a Bill Finger museum, which I'm all for too. By the way, just let's get
that'd be awesome.
Let's just find everything. It's so freaking hard to find stuff about Bill Finger. Let's just have it all. It's all publicly available so people can look at it.
Right.
We can actually have decent photos of Bill Finger instead of like these really cryptic ones we have to find. And again, we kind of started with him talking to kids. Now we're seeing him talking to adults. It's kind of another full circle kind of thing. Just showing like again, everyone's leaving kind of everyone's leaving a Bat fan.
Right.
Now we're hitting upon the whole ending chunk here is really good. We're going to hit upon two moments in this ending. We're just starting it here with kind of the road to the premiere.
Of
course, we're building the premiere of Batman v Superman. So look, say what you will, just regardless. Looking at it through the context of Bill Finger.
It was a big pop culture event at the very least.
Yes, it was a big event. It's kind of the next version of Batman. But two things also that hit with is that one, it's kind of fitting. We have this image that's going to come up where when they arrive at the premiere and we see the sign for Batman v Superman, just given the fact that Bill Finger and Jerry and Joe. They again the symbols of Batman and Superman who have been through all this stuff. They're both kind of like on the marquee in a way.
Right.
So I'm saying that with Batman and Superman is kind of a nice thing to take away. Also, like, hey, they both they're both there and they both have the credit that's rightfully distributed.
Very much so. Sure.
And also, it's just kind of the one. I mean, the best part. At least it's still the best part. It's on the best part of Batman v Superman too. Let's not forget that either. Okay, now I gotta tell this one. This to me is one of the most touching moments in the movie for me. As in my guy Michael Uslan just kind of saying he's been there at every premiere with his cool looking Batman tie, and then we have this great shot of his badge he's wearing right now. So this badge just says it all to me. It's like the perfect shot for the movie. If I had to pick one, honestly, it's just this beautiful shot. Thank you, Bill Finger, coming up. Just right. Oh, God,
there we go.
I love that Michael Uslan's the guy gets to wear it because, again, this is the symbol of guys at every premiere, and he's been waiting for years to see Bill Finger's name right next to Bob Kane's, and he's finally going to get that. I just love the build to this wonderful payoff, and I love that we don't really see it until our champion for Bill Finger arrives. But still, it's a nice thing just seeing the Finger family finally getting the notoriety they deserve without having to worry about being placated by DC. They're finally it's all been settled.
Yeah, right. The schmoozing is over. This is real, real respect.
Now, I knew about this, but they because this is the ending of the book of the Batman. Bill the Boy Wonder book does show a little bit of this, but the way it's executed and just placed at just the right point in the movie. The last two big emotional payoffs are right at the end here. One, just this little reveal that while Bill Finger victimized, credit-wise victimized throughout his life, he's lived so many bad things ahead of him and his family. He did get this moment though, and this to me is just such a beautiful, like, little victory that Bill Finger got after his demise, like little tribute he got. No matter how small, and only his son, who's now departed, knows this. Well, and now it's the words being spoken. Now we know it. Now the audience, but still, like, for a time, only it was a moment between father and son.
Right.
Who both were, gone before their time.
Oh my god.
I was so emotional when I saw this movie. Like, oh god, they need to put in a bat symbol. And it's being washed away. And this, of course, is for artistic liberties. The fact that we still have the outline of the bat there. That's
right.
That's a beautiful shot. That is such a beautiful. He's. And then we cut back to Nobleman. We follow him.
And that Batman poster, I like that fade, because that Batman poster is an image we've kind of lingered on from time to time in the movie.
Yes, the Arkham bat symbol.
Right.
And Tiki, I got to tell you this. So when I saw Superman, knowing going into it, again, since 2015, that he was finally going to get credit on the big screen, in the back of my mind, while I was so wrapped up in loving that opening, which I do, and it's still the best part of that film, the opening Bruce Wayne origin. I just, in the back of my mind, I was waiting. I was on the edge of my seat because I knew it was coming. Because again, we see it on Gotham, so but that goes by in like a blink of an eye. The end credits, it goes by really fast. They you barely even see it. But then this moment here, as I was going to see on the screen, it's going to be kind of a little bit of a moment for getting to see after Superman. Then we see Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Fingers, and I had a similar reaction to Nobleman here. Not as connected and as deservingly as Nobleman. I'm just saying I had an expectation to see this, and I was like so satisfied seeing it. It was the perfect cherry on top to this wonderful opening for me.
Sure. And then it was all downhill from there.
Come on.
I'm sorry.
Seriously. And again, is what we saw with that too. They have like all the bats hanging upside down, like a symbol of Batman with literally the origin of Batman with the guys who created him on the screen together. It's a nice moment, and just seeing that smile.
Yeah, really cathartic. Really cathartic.
Perfect ending for this movie. For when you're seeing that smile on Nobleman, he finally did it. It ends with him finally, and then we, of course, had a lot of nice news here that he's officially recognized as co-creator Batman everywhere. Not just in film, but in comics too. And it's a happy ending to a tragic story.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even really call this a tragic story because of. I mean, you're right. The man's life might have been tragic, but I think the story that this film is trying to convey is quite positive.
Well, yeah, I'm saying too with the tragic history, I guess maybe.
Of course. Yeah. All right, so that's about it, Dragon. You want to get into some final thoughts?
Oh boy, I gotta tell you, man, there are some other really good Batman documentaries. This one, to me, just the instant I saw, I was like, this is the best Batman documentary I've ever seen. I still stand firmly by that. It's an excellent story. Of course, you have some parallels to, if you look for parallels to when Batman and Bill Finger, of course, there's gonna be some there. If you just look to what the story is as itself, just like it's a story you can show anyone. Like he's just kind of showing to that class and showing to the people at the end. It's just this story of like it's gonna blow your mind when you think you know something. It's like not a conspiracy, but it's sort of like it's like a great historical documentary, but it does date back to at least 75, 76 years.
Sure.
And it's an amazing story. It's an impactful story. They hit upon those great visual, emotional moments and touchstones. Well, I mean, I love like the documentaries like like Bat Kid Begins. About the Bat Kid of San Francisco. Believe me, there are a lot of good ones, but this one absolutely just takes the cake. I've been waiting for this. I knew this story. This news is like a payoff of like seeing like the ins and outs of that story, seeing it all told. Now, I never thought we were going to get a movie like this until it was just kind of like announced on Hulu. I was so satisfied with this. I'm just so satisfied. It's one of my favorite documentaries this year so far. Oh my god, so good. I was very pleased with it.
So this was a 2017 release, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I will have to file that under my 2017 rankings then. Leave a little mental note for that. All right, yeah, it is a fantastic documentary, Dragon, as you said. Like I said, it's like you could have easily just kind of gone the lazy route and done a Talking Heads documentary, right? Like you could have just interviewed people and done it that way and not really gone the extra mile. But I think what makes this documentary really stand out is the presentation. It's the animation, it's the framing of the shots, as you were pointing out. It's the mix of home video into it. It's the editing. It's everything. It's just a very, very polished product at the end of the day, which really, really, lends credibility to it. It's not just people talking for an hour and a half. It's a story unfolding in front of your eyes, and I think that very much in character with with the origins of the story coming from the book and it all being very full circle in a way. I'm obviously, like you being the bigger comic book Batman fan, I'm not quite as personally affected by this as you are. I'm not, the emotional highs don't quite get to me as much, but it's still a very, very worthwhile documentary. I thought we had a really fun discussion, Dragon. This was a good commentary. We got out, a lot of good speculation from the John Lee Hancock film as well. But a good recommendation for Father's Day as well. And
I mean, it's. I'm sorry, I want to say one last thing if I could.
Sure.
At the end of the day, this is looking at this, and the way everyone should kind of look at this is a film about Batman's father, and it's a good one. An excellent pick for Father's Day.
Yeah. All right. Come on, John Lee Hancock. Get on it. Clark Gregg's raiding. Clark Gregg. He's waiting by the phone. He's just tapping his fingers, waiting for that call. Get on it.
Finger.